Marvel is not changing course anytime soon, and the Fantastic Four First Steps movie is just another example of this. We recently talked about what Vanessa Kirby had to say about Sue Storm and how she's going to be exploring gender politics through the character, but we also have comments from Joseph Quinn explaining how his Johnny Storm will differ from Chris Evans' portrayal of the character from those, 2004 films. Roll this up over at phantompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. Obviously, these comments were also made to Entertainment Weekly, same as Vanessa Kirby, and this is what he said about his Human Torch. He says, he's a man that leads with a lot of bravado, which can be an affront sometimes, but also he's funny. Nothing wrong with that. Sounds great. Sounds like the Human Torch, albeit I think there's a little bit more depth to him than that. However, this is what raises the red flag, because he then compared his version of the character to Evan's version, and he said, myself and Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige were speaking about previous iterations of him and where we are culturally. He was branded as this womanizing devil-may-care guy, but is that sexy these days? I don't think so. So maybe my memory isn't all that great, but if I remember correctly, in that Chris Evans version, especially in that first version, obviously he is shown as kind of that womanizing devil-may-care guy, but that is shown as actually something he needs to grow up from, and it's actually something that's holding him back and is actually bringing the team down because they don't have that team unity. He's off kind of doing his own thing, and that actually hurts the team significantly, especially in their confrontations with Doctor Doom. And I think maybe they have a little bit of that in the second film as well. I don't really remember the second film as much, but that was definitely the case in the first film. But he eventually grows up from that, becomes the team player, realizes that this type of behavior isn't how he should be behaving. It's very similar to what we see in the first Iron Man, right? He's obviously depicted as this womanizer kind of person. He's sleeping with a reporter, etc. But by the end of the film, he's obviously been kidnapped, tortured, etc. Had to fight his way out of the terrorist den, and he's definitely had some time to think about what he wants in life. And obviously, he kind of gets rid of that womanizing lifestyle that he was engaging in, and he begins specifically pursuing Pepper Potts. And I think we see something similar happen with Johnny Storm in that Chris Evans version back in the early 2000s. And I know Jessica Alba's Sue Storm was always kind of chiding him for acting kind of like a child. And so this idea that he was branded as this womanizing devil-may-care guy, I think is just completely and utterly not true. And anyways, this is what Marvel Comics is doing with him in the actual comics. He's literally banging creepy alien characters in the comics. So this idea that they're saying that that's not sexy anymore. Well, they have him banging like these creepy alien creatures. I mean, it's just absolutely disgusting stuff right here that he's doing with this creature. I mean, just like yuck. This is just yuck. So that's what they're doing in the comics, and then they're gonna do this in the movies, right? Say like, oh well, you can't have that, and they're literally doing it in the comics. Well, as Jack Posobiec likes to say, right? They don't care about the hypocrisy. They don't care about the contradictions because it's all about the power and gaining as much power as they can so they can then use it to destroy. And we see this over and over and over again. And I have a feeling they might be doing this with Johnny Storm in this Fantastic Four First Steps film. Anyways, though, Quinn goes on and says this version of Johnny is less callous with other people's feelings, and hopefully there's a self-awareness about what's driving that attention-seeking behavior. So it looks like instead of him being this womanizer, they're going to have him be kind of this maybe narcissist person who's seeking attention instead, maybe playing him up as kind of like a TikToker or an influencer. That seems to be what they are going with, and I think that doesn't really fit with Johnny Storm. I know there are some people who might argue that, but I just don't think that is how he should be portrayed. But we did get some other comments here And this is something we'll talk about a little bit further, but director Matt Shakman said this. He was really smart. He's on that spaceship for a reason. And I think sometimes people forget that in various comic stories, he's been one of the most heroic of them, even if he's undercutting his heroism at every turn through humor. He's Sue's brother, which means they are cut from similar cloth. And I think those comments are encouraging, but unfortunately they come alongside these ones from Quinn. And I find them encouraging because you have Quinn describing him as this devil-may-care guy, or at least Evans's version as this devil-may-care guy. And obviously that is a weakness. He's just like, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Whereas Shakman here is pointing out that it's courage, right? It's his heroism. And that is something that we see a lot of times, especially with the saints, right? Usually they have these great weaknesses, and then those great weaknesses are turned into great strengths or heroic virtues. And I think you can maybe potentially see this with Johnny Storm. You have this devil-may-care attitude. It is definitely a weakness, but he goes through this growth process, and it is transformed into a great strength and becomes that courage. It becomes that heroism. So maybe there is a glimmer of hope here in what Matt Shakman is saying, that maybe can brush what Quinn here is saying aside. But I guess we'll find out more on July 25th when the film arrives in theaters. But for me, this does not get me to want to see your film. It is one of a number of red flags. Obviously, talked about what Vanessa Kirby said about the gender politics. You also have the casting of Pedro Pascal. Huge red flag. I'm just kind of tired of seeing him in everything. I always like to kind of maybe bring up what my wife says. She doesn't like seeing people who are known for being in franchises, in other franchises, because it is hard to actually like maybe turn your brain a little bit so that you are no longer seeing them as that previous character, right? It's hard to what's the phrase that I'm looking for right now? Suspending your disbelief. That's it there. Finally came to me. It's much more difficult to suspend your disbelief when you have this person who has played this character in so many episodes, etc., and then you have to see them as this other character, and I think that is really hard to do. I think the greats are the only ones who can really do that. People kind of like Christian Bale. I think he's probably someone who is really good at making you believe he is that character. And I don't think Pedro Pascal is one of those people. So obviously that's a red flag on multiple levels. And then obviously you have the sex swap of Silver Surfer. They cast, I forget what her name is. She was in Ozarks to play the Silver Surfer, and that is a massive, massive red flag, and shows that they will be continuing the MCU trend. They will be continuing to embrace this woke ideology that they began around Captain Marvel, and they've been paying the price for that. Their most recent film, Captain America: Brave New World, the second worst performing film in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe history. The only film worse than it is The Marvels, and obviously that is factoring in for inflation. So maybe the Hulk might be in there. I have to look at the numbers, the Incredible Hulk, that 2008 film. But even then, I think it might have done better than Captain America: Brave New World, at least last I checked. So still one of the worst performing films of all time. And it looks like Fantastic Four is going to be following in the footsteps of the MCU that was created, I would say, around the time of Captain Marvel. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.